Thank you all for joining us for ALD's new series, ALD Career Conversations. So last year we switched our tagline to taking you from first year to career. And this series looks to do just that, to look at where you are now as a student and how you can get to the career that you're looking to get into. So we have some great alumni, such as David Kane, who's here with us today, to help us understand their journey, which might impact yours. And we're thrilled to have our students, ALD members, join the conversation as well. So during the main part of the conversation, keep your microphones and videos off. And then at the end, there will be an opportunity to ask questions, either by turning your camera on or using the chat feature at the end of the session. So we'd like to start with the introductions. Facilitating tonight will be myself and Eileen. Eileen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Eileen Merberg, and I'm Executive Director of Alpha Lambda Delta here in the national office. We are located in a little suburb of Rochester, New York, called Fairport, New York, Western New York. Welcome everyone here tonight, and happy to have you.
And I'm Trish Maxwell. I'm the Director of Communication for Alpha Lambda Delta, and I work in the national office with Eileen, supporting our members and our chapters. And we'd like to introduce today's speaker, David Kane. He was inducted into ALD in 2014 at Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, also known as IUPUI. He earned his bachelor's in mechanical engineering and applied mathematics, and he also received his master's degree in mechanical engineering from IUPUI. He's currently a flight test engineer lead for Rolls-Royce, and he lives in Indiana. So hi, David, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Trish. Thanks, Eileen. Glad to be here.
So we're going to start with some fun questions to kind of break the ice a little bit. So if you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, David, what would it be?
Oh, man. I think that's a pretty easy one. I think I would choose pizza because it's so versatile. You have your New York style, go Chicago deep dish, kind of the fast, ready, easy made, small ones. Yeah, you can vary toppings. It'd be pizza.
I have a very important follow-up question to that. Where do you stand on pineapple?
We are a split house when it comes to pineapple. I love pineapple on pizza.
Okay.
My wife can't stand pineapple on pizza. Therefore, we do not get pineapple on pizza.
That's the right answer.
That's right.
Very good. Great. Next question. If you won an all expenses paid 7-day vacation, and let's pretend that COVID magically disappears, where would you go?
My wife and I have always wanted to travel to the Mediterranean, small little quaint town, beach town on the Mediterranean. I think that's where we'd go. Maybe try some wine, some Mediterranean food, olives, those kind of things. That's where we'd go.
So when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Sure. So if we go back long enough, I wanted to be an oil change man because I wanted to know what the underneath looked like when they'd go down the stairs and change your oil. But if we go back to when I was 11 or 12, I distinctly remember watching the movie Apollo 13 for the first time. And there's this pivotal moment, the carbon dioxide filters. We had a square one and a circular one, and they needed to get one to fit in the other. And that's just a pivotal moment. They gathered all the engineers together to figure out how to solve this problem. And really from that day on, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to solve problems like that. And I've pursued being an engineer ever since.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay. So on to the more serious questions. What role did Alpha Lambda Delta play in your undergraduate experience? So were you involved? What were sort of your motivations for joining the organization? And did it give you confidence and skills? And we're sort of getting at this whole from first year to career, we'll get into your career, but sort of for your foundation and Alpha Lambda Delta in particular, did it play any sort of role in your undergrad experience?
Sure. Great question. Yeah, so ALD was one of only 2 organizations that I joined when I was in my undergrad. So that was the Engineering Student Council and that was Alpha Lambda Delta. Really, I think where Alpha Lambda Delta helped grow me was in leadership. So I started off as a chapter vice president. I came back as kind of a chapter advisor for the next 4 years, finishing my bachelor's and my master's degree. And then I also got to serve on the as a student member at large on the National Council of Alpha Lambda Delta. So really that helped grow leadership in me. And while, you know, I'm early career right now, I don't have a leadership role at work, but I am leading projects. You know, you have to work with people every single day. And those aspects of leadership, those soft skills are paramount. And those are things that you pick up every single day when you're working in a group such as Alpha Lambda Delta.
So you were a double major, is that correct, in mechanical engineering and applied mathematics?
That's
So
right.
can you talk a little bit about kind of both of those majors and how they prepared you for your career?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I opted, mechanical engineering is what I wanted to do for my whole life. That's kind of what I set my sights on. But then I also really enjoyed the math aspect of my courses early on. So after my first semester, I had a built-in minor of math in my degree, and so I said, what would it take to make this a full-blown major? So I went that route. It was just a couple more credits per semester, and so we went that route. But double majoring for me, it gave me the theoretical portion in the applied mathematics, and then it gave me the applied version. You know, so the heat equation was a great example. We derived it in my math classes, and then we applied it in my engineering classes. So it gave me this full picture of how something went from concepts all the way to real world application. How do you use it in your day-to-day? Really, I would say what was crucial about our degree and what I would recommend for the people listening is focus on the fundamentals. Those are, you know, your first few years, maybe where you are right now, you're taking thermodynamics, you're taking dynamics or solid mechanics. Really focus on those fundamentals. Those are key. And those are the basic building blocks that all your courses are going to build off of, and everything you learn when you get to industry are going to come back to those. So the better you know those building blocks, the easier it's going to be, and the more, the better engineer you'll be in the future.
Okay, we've mentioned a couple times this tagline of first year to career. So, and you mentioned a little bit about Alpha Lambda Delta. So beyond Alpha Lambda Delta, or including Alpha Lambda Delta, can you describe your path from your undergraduate into your master's path to your job? So your path from first year to career, internships, did you do any research projects with faculty? You know, what was your thought about graduate school? Had you, you know, planned on that all along, or did it, how did you come to go to graduate school and that whole thing? So that path as an undergrad before your career.
Sure. Yeah. So kind of the first thing that I did was get involved. I did identify the two organizations. I remember seeing, you know, at our involvement career fair, ALD had a presence there, and so did the student council. And so those were the two things that I said, this is what I want to get involved with. So I jumped feet first into that and got involved right away my first year. Second, kind of what I alluded to last, was the second year I kind of focused on fundamentals. That's where you're learning the building blocks of engineering. You need to know those fundamentals. So I spent a lot of time focusing on coursework there. Following that, using some of the study abroad money from the Stimler scholarship from ALD, I studied abroad and went and studied engineering in Germany. Took a month there and learned how they do green engineering. So how do they differ on recycling? What's the recycling process? How does that differ than what we do in the United States? Coming back after that, the following summer, I went and did an internship in UPS. I was a little disappointed. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. It was I wanted to be at a more of a mechanical engineering company, and they did more logistics-based engineering. Wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but it was an internship, and it did give me experience. So I went with it, just learning what could I get out of this. So then that next part, you know, networking is super important. It's one of the things you learn in Alpha Lambda Delta, because it's a great swatch of people from different majors, people doing different research. It's so important that you learn how to network, learn how to share yourself, what your passions are, and then also listen and make those connections so that you can connect those dots later on in your career. So that was important for me. And how I got my job at Rolls-Royce is, you know, I was talking about what I loved, and I met someone that said, "Hey, I know someone that actually works at Rolls-Royce. Would you like an introduction?" So I said, "Absolutely." So I got lunch with a guy named Lambda, and we were just talking about engineering and what aerospace looked like in the next 10 or 20 years. So he worked in the research and technologies group. So his focus was, how do I make sure we're staying agile, and make sure we're not going to, you know, not be passed up with the new technologies that are coming down the pipeline. So we were just talking about, you know, what could this look like in 20 years? And unbeknownst to me, I had no idea that he was a hiring manager. But he said, you know, after our talk, he said, "Hey, I need an intern. Would you be interested?" Absolutely, I would be interested. So unbeknownst to me, you know, someone made the introduction, and that landed me an internship. From there, you know, I was able to they like to hire first years out of their internship pool. And so we had an interview, and, you know, connecting this back to my time at UPS, they one of the things they were actually interested in, one of my first projects in my current role, was working on the logistics of how we move our engines from one factory to another. So while I didn't think I was getting any useful knowledge, any useful experience working at UPS, I still did it with the idea that, hey, I'm here to learn something, and I'm going to do my best here. And then come to find out 2 years later, as I'm sitting in an interview, they said, "What do you know about logistics? I need to maximize getting this from here to here." It's like, I know a good amount. I've worked for UPS, and that's, you know, that's what set me apart. That was one of the experiences that they really liked seeing, and I think that's what absolutely landed me the job to where I am today.
Cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, can I just follow up there? Yeah,
Yeah, please do.
so, well, just a couple like great lessons in there that I'm going to
Yeah.
articulate or follow up on. So the UPS thing, I mean, I think the story there is, number one, be open to experiences, even if it's something you don't want to do, because that shines a light on of what you don't want to do, because
That's right.
everybody's focused on what they want to do, but it's equally important to know what you don't want to do. Process of elimination, and that can really clarify it, being open to those experiences. But then it turns out you learned something that was very valuable, and you didn't
Absolutely.
even know that it would be. So, and then the other thing is your interaction with the person who hired you. You just never know what a connection could lead to. You could be talking to somebody
Absolutely.
who you think is will mean nothing to you in your life, or that you'll never see again. And boy, oh boy, you just never know. So always sort of, you know, try and have good positive interactions with everyone you meet, because you just never know.
Absolutely. And it sounds cheesy to brand yourself, but know what you would understand your elevator pitch. What
Yeah.
makes you tick, both in your work field and outside? What are some of your hobbies? What, you know, be able to present yourself in not in an overbearing way, but in a way that represents you well, and that people can remember and, you know, be rememberable.
Yeah. Yeah. A little aside, and I won't be long on this, but we just offered a new program, a leadership development program. So for anyone listening, check out our ALD Lead Certified. And one of the courses in that program is exactly that, just knowing your brand. Who are you? What's your leadership brand? Be able to articulate it, to write it, and to, if you are in an elevator or anywhere, to be able to articulate it. It's so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Thank you, David.
David, when you first got your job at Rolls-Royce and you said you were, you'd be working on airplane engines, I said, wait, I thought that was just fancy cars. So really interested to look at like, what does a typical day at work look like for you? And what, I guess, what does it all cover?
Yeah, so it's different every single day, which is one of the things I really love about my job. So the main goal of my job is to keep our airplanes that are located in Maryland, to keep them flying. So just kind of general how flight test engineering works. We have what we call an envelope. It's like a square box. And that's where we like to fly our aircraft. We know everything within this box is safe. But it's more efficient if you can fly maybe outside the box. So we take these special aircrafts, our flight test aircraft, and we'll go right to the edge of those boxes. And then we'll do some special flights, and then we'll analyze the data and say, yeah, it was safe there. It operated how we thought it would. And so we'll move the border of that box just a little bit. And we'll do that enough times to where our box gets bigger. And then we'll take that and say, look, we now have a safe flight envelope that's much bigger, and we'll apply that to our production aircraft that are actually working in theater. So a lot of my work deals with writing the test plans, trying to identify where we want to go fly on that envelope, and then on the back end, analyzing that data. So getting the data, understanding what actually happened, was it safe? Sometimes things also break. So looking at the hardware that breaks, tearing down an engine, trying to investigate and put the pieces together of how did this break? What was the series of events? What was the cause? What was the reaction? So looking at hardware, building that up. And then also looking long-term. So those would be more day-to-day tasks, then also looking at long-term. How can we build efficiencies into this engine? How can we have a test stand. We only have one test stand that we test our engine in. So if something on that breaks, we could be down for a couple weeks. That would be detrimental. So what kind of spares do we need? What kind of projects do we need to be working on now, so that we're prepared for failure in the future, so that we can minimize downtime.
How did COVID impact, what you do and kind of your daily operations? I know you said you were working from home. How did it change?
Yeah, it changed us quite a bit. We were 160 people that work on our team. We were a tight-knit group. So I would say the month to 2 months that followed, we didn't really feel much of an impact, because we still were so tight-knit. We still had that, what I call relational equity. From being in the office, we could work well together. That's diminished a little bit now that we have new people on the teams and you're not seeing people face to face. It's been harder to work. A lot of video calls, a lot of phone calls. I laugh. I was looking at my work phone bill, and I went from talking 200 hours a month on the phone to over 6,000 hours a month on the phone. It's a lot of phone calls. It's a lot of meeting, because engineering is so collaborative. No one person has the right answer. So you really need to understand all these different aspects, how it impacts different areas of the business. So it's a lot of looking at a computer, a lot of talking on the phone. But other than that, it's relatively the same.
Great, thanks.
So presumably the students joining us tonight and that will maybe watch the video, the recording down the road have an interest in engineering or mechanical engineering. So what advice do you have for students if they're pursuing a career in this field, in your field, and maybe a more general field?
Sure.
What sort of are your top pieces of advice?
Yeah, so first I would say focus on the fundamentals. Your freshman, your sophomore, even early junior classes, those are going to be your building blocks. So learn those well, ingrain those into your body. Second would be find out what you're good at. Especially, in a bigger engineering corporation like Rolls-Royce where I work, we have no less than 100 different unique engineering roles. So you could be really awful at thermodynamics, and that's okay. but understand that, be able to articulate that, and find out what you are good at. What does make you tick? Do you like working project stuff more? Are you better with schedule and budget and bigger overarching thinking? Or do you like to get in the nit grit detail of a design engineering role? It's important that you understand what you're good at. And you've probably had some experience in your class with this. You'll have a senior engineering capstone where you get to experience some of the project elements of it. So hopefully you've had some experience to help narrow down what you're good at, but identify that, reflect a little bit, identify what you may be good at, what you may like, and then focus your job search that way. And then last, and I think this is probably the most important, is don't neglect the soft skills. When you go into an interview, everyone that you're going to interview against has an engineering degree. That is the bare minimum to get in the door. So that kind of is a wash when you're comparing yourself to other people. But being able to interview well, being able to write well, especially now that we're all online, being able to articulate, talk about a technical problem to someone that may not have the technical background that you do. So bringing the technical conversation down to a level that everyone can understand without compromising the technical details that need to be there. Writing emails, just the networking, holding a conversation. The soft skills are so fundamental to how you work in an office. And I think it's something you pick up working in an organization like ALD. You absolutely get that, in the meetings, in the leadership. It's something that comes through quite well.
Is there anything, so you did a lot as undergrad, you were involved in ALD, but you did other things. You had an internship or more than one. Is there anything you wish you had done to better position yourself in the field, or just looking back in general, anything you wish you had done?
Yeah, I think I would have, for me, I would have joined a technical organization as well. So I did join Tau Beta Pi towards the end of my career, but we also had AIAA and we had ASME, which are two of kind of the main astronautics, aeronautics, or mechanical engineering professional organizations. Those are great to help finding a job, but also it's just, our chapter was pretty active, and, whether it's building a rocket competition or just help polishing your resume, or, now a lot of people have professional affiliations with that in my current role. And it's something that I wish I may have gotten involved with a little earlier to kind of carry that on into my career. Yeah. Good. And the dues are super cheap when you're you start. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, or ask the chair of the department or something, they might sponsor students, but yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, and kind of the last question I have for you, David, is some of our students watch these, or tuning in now because they're not sure if they want to do mechanical engineering or not. So I guess what advice do you have for them about exploring the field and, and if it's right for them?
I think there's a lot of engineering companies, even around Indianapolis. A lot of people like to share their passions. As I was learning, something maybe I wish I did a little more was explore all the different areas that, all the different type of areas that engineering had to offer, especially in Indianapolis. I alluded to sitting down with the kind of the engineer who's thinking 20 years out. He's not doing the very technical design work to keep planes flying today. He's looking at where our company should go in 20 years. That's a realm of engineering that I didn't even consider, because your classes are so design-based, design-oriented. So really, I would say talk to your professors. Most of them will probably come from industry and have industry contacts. I don't know a single coworker who wouldn't give an hour to sit down and talk to a young engineer and say, let me help you decide, where you want to be in this field. That's during my internship, I sat down and talked with quite a few people and said, what engineering roles are there in Rolls-Royce? Because there were so many, I knew what I was good at, but I didn't know how that mapped to certain roles. So I met with probably 20 managers and said, here's what I like to do. Does that fit any kind of engineers in your role? And some of them said, no, not really. But then I found a few that were really good, and that's how I landed identified the job that I'm in now. So that may be a little harder as an undergrad. You may have to put a little more effort into that, but your engineering early career office, your professors, or, even just, if there's a community event, you can go meet some engineering firms in the community that you're at. Don't be afraid to have those conversations. Most engineers will be teachable, want to have a teaching spirit and want to help you identify if this is where you want to be.
Great advice. Thanks, David.
That's great advice too, because I just generally find, in general, not universal, people love to talk about
Absolutely.
what they do in all
Yeah.
fields, every field. People love it. I do. I would love to talk with anyone interested in, student affairs or, running an, anyway, people love talking about what they do. So don't be afraid to ask.
Absolutely.
Speaking of asking, is our participants now. You are welcome to ask any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to turn your camera on, unmute yourself or just type in chat. If any of our participants today have any questions for David. Is there anything, David, you can think of that we didn't ask? If you were an undergrad right now interested in a career, is there anything you'd want to know?
Let's see. I would say one of the questions that you didn't ask was, what's my favorite part about my job?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Watching airplanes fly. There is just something so cool, something almost emotional about seeing a part that you just touched. Now it's making that, that stationary object fly. It's so cool. And it's something that just keeps me coming back to work every day, just excited to go to work.
On the flip side of that, David, what's been kind of the most difficult part or difficult thing you've experienced in your role?
Challenging, yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it difficult, because I think it's something you should expect going into this role for engineering, but it's something you'll have to put in the work. So coming out of school, you have a wonderful foundation, but I would say 95% of the time, you don't have the true depth that you need to work on the front edge of whatever engineering design that we're working on. So there's a lot of times that I'll be asked a problem and I'll have to go back to the textbooks or go back to, go talk to some other experts, and I have to learn more, have to educate myself. So maybe that's something I didn't fully expect going into this. You just graduated with your degree, you're now an expert, and I would say you still have a lot of learning to do. So approach this with a learning mindset. And be prepared to dive in, do some research by yourself, and go deep. I was intrigued on my first day tour of the Rolls-Royce campus. We have a librarian, and we have a library of all these textbooks. It's like, oh, that's interesting, because we do need to understand. You may need something very specific, so you go grab a book on it. So continuing learning, something that you should always be doing, but specifically in work.
Right, that's great advice. Don't throw away your textbooks. Hang on to them. You never know. Good, that's great. Okay, thank you, Kylie, for your comment. If there's anyone else, I don't think we have. Great, thanks, Alexis. Good. All right, I think we are good. Thank you so much for your time, for taking some time on a what's today, Wednesday evening, to spend with us. We so appreciate it. Thank you for your involvement with Alpha Lambda Delta back in the day too. But this has been really great, and I think very useful for students.
Absolutely, glad to be here. Thanks for the invite. It's great to see you all again, and I love supporting Alpha Lambda Delta. It was so formative in my college career, and I hope our viewers will find the same.
Great, thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Hey, talk to you guys later. Thanks.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
Take care.